Could that just put him over the edge?
I'm not too sure. I don't think they did well.
He's a bully.
I'm just so sick and tired. I'm hanging on a wire, a foot over the fire, and it's burning. I can feel it inside. Done with the same cliche, done with the day after day. There's got to be a way. Now is the time to break the tie. I'll live, I'll die for what is wrong and what is right. I'll take the pain for all the ones without a name. To be invincible, we'll be invincible.
They still have a lot of holes to fill.
He didn't get fired. He didn't get fired. No, he didn't get fired. He never got his contract renewed.
Welcome, 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 everyone. We are Two Guys in Hockey Talk. I am Pawel and my colleague,
Evan Ev Rennerts.
Welcome. We got a special guest for you tonight. He's just in the background. We're going to bring him out in just a second. But before we do, we wanted to present our guest headliner, Headline, brought to you by Penny Billionaires. The song you just heard, it's incredible. It's amazing. It's hard rock. Let's give it a listen. Welcome, Tom.
Hey guys, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being on the show. Tom Gazzola, a local writer. We got a little bit of information on you. You are host of the Oil Stream pre and post game show at Yeg Sports Talk. You're a co-host on my Hello Hockey show with Belzy and an NHL correspondent. Pretty big thing. Welcome to the show. How are things?
Things are good, guys. You know, when the Oilers are winning, people are happy and things are calm. And when they're losing, we get to deal with all the problems and all the issues and the anger and frustration on the pre and post game show. So I'm okay with them winning. It makes people around the city happy. When they lose, though, I'm not going to lie to you. I like the chaos on our post game show. And it's something that we carried over from TSN 1260 here on Edmonton Sports Talk. So either way, I'm happy. Let's just put it that way. When there's hockey, I'm happy.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being on. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty of journalism, Oilers, the NHL, a lot of these things that we have some questions as well as a little bit of your background. But the first question we ask every guest that comes on the show is, where did your love of the game first emerge? Or is there a moment in time that you just fell in love or watched hockey with someone significant or someone important?
Yeah, great question, Pawel. I like that. I honestly don't remember. I think it was, and then my mom and dad, my mom's from Poland. She's a Polish lady. My dad picked her up at a slow pitch tournament in Edmonton because he worked with her cousin who grew up here. And so I guess like, I would watch hockey and my mom would show me these VHS tapes. She'd be like, remember you would run around hitting a ball around with a small hockey stick that your dad cut down in the basement. I do not remember that. So I'd watch these VHS tapes and then she'd show me and my brothers sitting on my dad's lap watching games and complaining about the Oilers losing and Wayne Gretzky destroying the Oilers. And I remember saying to my dad when I was pretty young, I think I was like 6 or 7, I vividly remember being upset that the LA Kings, Kelly Rudy, Luke Robitaille, you know, all those guys, Gretzky, Dmitry Kristich for crying out loud, Rob Blake. I remember, I think I said to my dad, I'm like, I hate Wayne Gretzky. And he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, you loved him when you were a kid. I was like, what do you mean loved him? And he goes, Gretzky was an Oiler. Don't you remember? I said, no, I don't remember. He got traded when I was 2, but I think my dad ingrained me and my uncles, same thing. Like a lot of kids around here, they just kind of, what do you do? Well, you watch hockey with your dad because what is he doing? He's drinking a beer and watching the game. So I kind of started doing it then. And it just kind of snowballed from there, like most kids around here.
Well, okay, go ahead, Evan. One thing I got to say that I guess you have a special place in your heart for Mario Tchaikovsky, who played for Edmonton
Yeah.
at the time. in the
Marius,
mid-
yeah.
I have a funny story about him really quickly. I
really?
covered the World Championships in Helsinki in 2012, and Mariusz Czerkawski was doing the color and play-by-play for the Polish broadcast of the event. And my mom loved him. Like she loved his ex-wife from GoldenEye.
Yeah.
Jason Strudwick says that she was the most, or no, it was Joaquin Gage who was teammates of Czerkawski's when she was here with him. And he said that every guy on the team, even if they had beautiful wives or girlfriends, were just like floored by how gorgeous she was. So my mom was like, you have to go talk to Czerkawski, because I called her from Helsinki. I'm like, hey mom, like, you won't believe who's here. Mariusz Czerkawski. She's like, you need to go talk to him. So I did. And he's a super nice guy and very chatty. And I think he liked catching up with people from like the Edmonton story to hear what was going on back home and how things were with the Oilers and all of that, one of his old teams. And we had mutual acquaintances that he played with that I got to know through broadcast and working and covering the NHL for years. And it got to the point, guys, where I think by like the 7th or 8th day, Czerkawski would like circle and look for me. I was like, oh man, I don't know what else to talk to this guy about. And my mom's like, just talk to him. He doesn't have anyone else to talk to. Talk to him. I'm like, Mom, I'm out of things to say. I just stand there awkwardly with Mariusz Czerkawski. I can't believe it. But that's my Czerkawski story. And yes, the Polish
so Tom, Evan here. You probably don't remember these days. It's been quite a while. So back in the day when you were doing some beat work and covering off, the lockout and sometime before it, the OKC Barons with Eric Rogers.
Yes.
I was doing some blogging back in the day with Brent Huska and the Oilers Jambalaya.
Nice.
And so we had done some conference calls. But I'm just wondering, do you recall the YouTube video that came up and they were making fun of you having this weird, awkward walk? I don't know if it was Taylor Hall or Jordan Eberle during the lockout.
I'm not surprised that we got pretty bored back then. So I'm sure they were making fun of me. I don't know. Jack Michaels might have started that too. He would always say that I would walk with like my chest out. I have no idea what he's talking about. So maybe Taylor and Jordan jumped on board with that. But that doesn't surprise me whatsoever, Evan, because we were bored in Oklahoma City just because it wasn't busy like it is in the National Hockey League schedule.
Wow. Okay, so let me throw out the first question here for you. You were talking about you love it when there's chaos because it makes more interesting conversation than trying to, like, for example, this morning on the oil stream, you guys are sitting there talking about whether Stuart Skinner should have been a star, shouldn't have been, was he a game saver? So just so you know, we do catch stuff, you guys do. And by the way, congrats on the show and coming up with something when the local radio station shut down. So great work. You guys have done a fabulous job with that. If you guys haven't caught it, we'll make sure to put it in the links a little bit later on here at Two Guys in Hockey Talk. So my question was, because you've been following so long and working closely with the organization, when the Oilers were going through all those losing times, how did you keep conversation going? Like, that must have been so hard to pull out more, not the lockout even. We're talking losing game after game after game, working in the draft year after year. How did you manage to come up with content and new stuff to talk about?
It wasn't easy. I know that, especially when you were working for the team, when I was hosting Oilers TV. The first couple of years, I remember being like really tough because there was a lot of stuff that when you're working with the team or as part of a member of the organization, like, it's off limits. Like, you just don't go to certain areas. You let the other guys deal with that stuff and throw the high heat and the fastballs at the players. You just kind of sit in the background, which kind of sucked too. So, because you want to be the guy, like, that's why I got into this, is I want to be the one asking, hey, you guys have lost, 7 of the last 11. Why is your team, like, what's wrong with the power play? How come you guys can't seem to hold it? Those questions are fun to ask sometimes, and that's why you get into it. But during those days working for the organization, what you'd have to do is you get to know the guys on the team a little bit, and the guys that didn't get as much of the limelight, that's where you'd start to shift the focus to them and tell their stories a little bit more, and you'd build rapport with them, and they would actually give you stuff about the team. You would start with the light stuff, and you would actually, and a lot of these guys knew they were either playing to stay in the NHL or their next contract or with the team. Right. and they could trust you. So they would end up giving you more information, and they would dive deep into the team, and they would honestly, kind of peel back the curtain a little bit. So that's what I kind of learned is one of the tricks too. And then the front facing stuff, like the day to day, you would just take the usual rhetoric and you would run with it, because that's all you could do.
Right.
I didn't want Kevin Lowe calling me and saying, why the F did you ask this player about this? Or why did you mention so-and-so might be on his way out? Like that, for them, they didn't want a reporter. They wanted a cheerleader.
Right.
And I was never comfortable with that. So I always tried to push it. And, sometimes I pushed it too far. And my old boss, Steve Hogel, who's now with the Edmonton Riverhawks, he's an old news guy. He was the news director at CTV. He always said, you know what, Tom, if you're not getting into trouble a couple of times a year, you're not doing your job right. So that was always good to have someone like that in your corner. And then unfortunately, Steve moved on, and we had more marketing types that didn't understand what broadcast is. And that went, down a different path, and kind of tried to deal with that as much as I could. But that's how you do it. You just, you get to know the guys that, not the big name guys, like Ryan Jones, Jeff Petrie. I talk a lot about Matt Hendricks. Like those guys would give you stuff, and they wouldn't BS you. They would just tell you how they felt. And then they would say it on camera. I'd be like, hey, do you want us to like cut that out? And they'd be like, no.
No,
that's how it is. Like I've been in this league long enough. I don't care. Like this is how it is. So
it's great.
You'd always get the easy team, stuff that they would put at the front of the website. But then like you'd be able to tuck the good stuff in, and if people look for it or listen long enough, or watch long enough, they would see it and they'd be like, you know what, like this is actually good.
Sweet.
Well, this is going to be kind of a twofold question to take you back a little bit. So you're kind of a veteran in the game. You're doing a lot of journalism. You're reporting. You're there. You're on the know. You're doing the pre and post game shows. What kind of brought you to wanting to write about hockey? Because you talked about your passion and kind of it came out of nowhere. But then you got into the writing, the interviewing, because these are big skills to have. And I know right now it's a tough sport to get into, no pun intended. But like getting into sports journalism can be a little challenging. What is maybe some advice you can also give to people trying to make it potentially or trying to break into it today?
Yeah.
Any thoughts there?
It is an ever evolving landscape is a good way to put it. I mean, 6 months ago, I was working for TSN. I was I was a TSN guy. I was doing TV broadcasts, sidelines for CFL. They're telling me you're going to do more games. We had the Oilers pre and post game show. We thought things were going good. We were profitable, and we had the number one morning show on AM radio, and they just pulled the rug out from under us because the landscape is changing and they don't want to invest in AM radio. And so now it has added another wrinkle in trying to get in the game, so to speak, like you said, Pawel. But like, if there's a will, there's a way. Certainly the programs, Nate has a great one that a lot of great broadcasters have come from. The journalism program at McEwen has pumped out a lot of great writers and journalists. And the thing I would say to people that want to get into it, try it. It's not the easiest. You're not going to get paid a ton of money out of the gate. It takes a little while to build that up and get to a certain platform and level where you start to see the money come in. And it's a battle. It's a grind. And a lot of people want in on it. It's just, it's a bit of a game of attrition too. And then the other thing I would say too is like, fan blogs and podcasts. Those are great because there is an appetite for them. But if you want to push through and get in and really assert yourself and be recognized by teams, and you get media credentials and access, it's just kind of tough. Like you have to drop the fan part of it. You have to be as objective as possible. Drop the subjectiveness. I always hear, some people drop like, this is a tell that you're listening because you always want to get takes from different corners of certain fan bases. As soon as I hear we, when talking and referencing a team, I go, okay, this is more of a fan leaning type of show as opposed to hey, I'm a reporter, a journalist, I have access.
Interesting.
To hear that that's what this team is doing or it is. And you know what? We're seeing it all across the board in the media landscape where You could go to some of the biggest media outlets in our country, the biggest media outlets in the US, and you're starting to hear the we creep in a little bit more. So that is also changing, but I would just say stick with it. If you can get into one of those programs, do it. And then, you can build your own website. You could build your own following, and teams will listen and watch and read. And if they deem that, what you're doing is coming with a certain level of integrity and professionalism, you'll probably get access, and away you go.
So quick question then. Sorry, Pawel. You're talking about the we section, and you probably noticed this, and I don't know, maybe I missed it on one of your shows, but have you noticed Craig McTavish on Sportsnet? And anything he's doing with local guy Bob is interesting enough. I'm hearing the word "we" all the time, even more so than when I think actually he was coaching with the organization or as a GM. Interesting enough.
Yeah, I have heard it. I love Mac T. He's a friend, and I'll bring this up too in conjunction with Mac T. Jimmy Johnson went on an epic rant about the Cowboys, and he dropped a bunch of wees in that one too. So it's happening everywhere. And to Mac T's credit, like when he got into the broadcast game, he didn't use it. And he went to St. Louis last year, didn't work out as an assistant coach. He's come back here. He lives right by the arena. I see him all the time. Mac T said it.
He's awesome.
He said it. He's an Oiler. And he said it when he was interviewing for other head coaching jobs when the Oilers let him go, or they, mutually parted from one another. And he said it. He's an Oiler through and through. And he's a guy where you look at it, you go, well, won Stanley Cups as a player, ended up being an assistant coach, head coach, GM, and then even a few games as head coach when Todd Nelson was brought in, which was weird. And now broadcaster, like, if there's one guy around here where you can let that slide, it's definitely him. But yeah, that is an example of it. And, that is an Oilers broadcast too. And
exactly.
If it was a national, say we're talking about a Saturday or a Wednesday night, somebody would be in his ear being like, hey, Mac, just drop the wheeze tonight.
So some people would disagree with you from a network that is believed to be out of Toronto. I'll just say that.
It is.
When you watch some of those national broadcasts, they would tell you that there's a lot of we going on. Anyway, I digress.
For sure. So I know the meat and
disagreement.
I know the meat and potatoes of our conversation will be around the NHL, and of course, being based in Edmonton, some Oilers questions will come up. They have already. But before we get to that, I wanted to get a little bit of feedback. So we did a little digging, and we apologize if this isn't supposed to be shared, but we found this legendary photo on Elite Prospects. So my first question is, A, where does your allegiance really lie? This is why I picked Detroit and Edmonton. But second of all, do you want to talk a little bit about like playing the game, how much, what it meant to you, and some pretty impressive stats as a center / left winger?
I'm looking for some memorabilia. I actually have something here that I went and visited my old team and watched them, and he gave me a puck, and he's like, hey, put this in your backdrop with your new station. So that's my old junior team, the North Edmonton Red Wings.
Sweet.
And so what happened there, that picture, by the way, those guys at Elite Prospects are very meticulous, and they dig up some gold. So kudos to them for that one. But I think I was 18 when I took that one, or maybe 19. I was a baby, and I was playing for the Red Wings. I had just gotten to them, or maybe I had played 1 year, but I spent 4 years there. It was a lot of fun. Junior B, you know what? It's still good hockey. There's some great players. We had a lot of WHL guys that didn't want to play Junior A that just came back and played Junior B around town. A lot of AJHL guys, BC guys, Saskatchewan, Manitoba guys that either they didn't stick with their teams, got homesick, and ended up in our league at the time. I know now like hockey across the country, even the tryouts, like we used to have 70, 80 guys come out for tryouts, training camp, and now it's down. I was talking to my buddies who I played on with that team with, and they're assistant coaches with the Red Wings, and they're like, we had 25 guys show up. We barely cut anyone. We could barely maintain a roster, and we're one of the better franchises in the league. And it's just where hockey's going with kids in Canada taking up a lot of soccer, obviously. Basketball's doing great. football a little bit, baseball, obviously an uptick. Baseball is turning into hockey sort of. But at the time, I went to Lloydminster to play for the Blazers at the time before they became the Bobcats in the AJHL. And I remember, my dad was like, well, you're doing pretty good. Looks like they're going to either, sign you or keep you around. And are you ready to move here? I was like, no, I don't like it. I only came to camp just to please you, basically. I'm done with hockey. And I just went back, and my buddies were like, just come to the Red Wings and play with us. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'll do that. And then I remember Lloyd called me like 3 or 4 times that season. And they said, hey, do you want to come play against Sherwood Park and Fort Sask at the time? St. Albert had a team still before they moved to Spruce. We'd like to get you into some games. And I was like, no, I'm good. And they call. And then I remember another time a bunch of their players got into a bar fight at a place in Lloyd called Amigos that I ended up knowing because I ended up doing news in Lloydminster a few years later, ironically enough. And they called again and they're like, hey, do you want to come back? Because we had to trade a bunch of guys and cut guys. I was like, no, I'm good. And then I think they called one more time and I was just like, boys, I'm okay. Thank you. So the dream had died. But yeah, I had 4 great years playing in the jungle with the Red Wings. And I still like going to watch them play every now and then.
So let me just tap in. So I'm the guy that deals more around the junior hockey and stuff, Tom. So I do have a question, and I'm sure you're quite familiar with it. And if not, I apologize for throwing you on the spot. But so the BCHL now has separated from Hockey Canada. I mean, they get the highest number of NCAA graduates that they're sending there. It's amazing. Any thoughts on that? Do you think you see it changing, Hockey Canada going back? Where do you see the direction heading in that situation?
That's something that I'm glad you brought that up, Evan, because that's something that Sean Bell and I talk about on our Saturday show, Hello Hockey.
Okay.
Because Belsey coaches a U18 team that he's starting to feed players and he's trying to direct them towards the BCHL. And I think the number of NCAA commits is a record this year, if I'm not mistaken, according to Sean and what he's kept me up to speed with. And it has teams in the AJHL kind of looking and going, well, that's helping with recruiting. They can now bring in players from the US, Europe. There's no limitations there. And I know that Hockey Canada has tried to impose some sanctions. They tried to tell players that were going to go rogue and go to the BCHL that, all their Hockey Canada status and them playing for the U18 teams and all of that would be nullified. And the kids are just like, I don't care. See you later. Hockey Canada isn't a beacon of the game for a lot of up and coming players and quite frankly, a lot of Canadians in general. So it's interesting to see how this has developed and how successful the BCHL has become. And I feel like it's only going to continue. Everything I hear from people is, how do I get my kid to the BCHL if they're not going to go to the WHL or the USHL? Like it's BCJ, it's BC. And good for them because they didn't like the way Hockey Canada was going or has been going, and they decided to break the mold, and so far so good.
Awesome. Well, to transition a little bit from that, so we know that the PWHL has really taken off in the last little bit. And as we talked about, we try to encourage women's pro hockey sports in any kind of level.
How we?
Sorry, I used the we. Maybe I'm sounding
No. I was saying Howie. As in Howie Draper,
Howie
one
Draper,
of our former guests.
Yeah, Howie. Oh, I thought you meant we. I shouldn't have used it in that context. Is he frozen? Maybe you're frozen a little bit. If Tom, you can hear me. He may be frozen.
Well, we'll just keep talking, and Tom will jump in soon.
Hopefully he can hear me, but I don't know what's going on. Let me see if I can. There you go. Sorry about that. I don't know if something. So my question with the PWHL is, there's been a lot of rumblings about real fast expansion, and of course, it takes some time to get investors. Like there's a whole process. I mean, if people looked at what Vegas and Seattle had to do, it happened several years before they actually got started from the ground up. Do you think that there is any chance or possibility with Edmonton or the Daryl Cates group or the Oilers organization to potentially having a PWHL team here in the city?
I'd say yes.
Okay.
Because it's NHL backed. Now, whether OEG wants to get involved, I haven't heard anything myself. I'm sure that they'll be presented with something or approached because, anytime there's a business opportunity, especially on the sports side in the city, usually the Cates group and OEG is someone that they get a knock or a call or something like that. So I would assume so, but I'm guessing, I can't speak for OEG or any prospective buyer here in the city, because there's also a lot of people with, deep enough pockets in our city that stay relatively quiet that could probably put together a group or fund this on their own. If the conditions are right, they get a favorable arena lease somewhere. If they get a partnership with the other teams in the city, pro sports teams, not just the Oilers.
Yeah.
I think it could work. Now, I hope it works because I've known a lot of people. Shannon Zabados is the picture right back here. I grew up playing hockey with Shannon. She always wanted to play in the NHL. And, she got to play pro hockey. She got to play pro hockey with the guys. And she was a trailblazer. And I know how much of a passion burned within her to, just be one of the guys on the team, quote unquote, even though she was, female. So now that everyone seems to be on board on the women's side, they have the backing of the National Hockey League. They have some really, really huge sponsors and partners on board.
Excellent.
This is what it needed 5 years ago when they had the two rival leagues in the Canadian League, and then they try to jumpstart another one. It seems like everything in terms of getting ducks in a row has finally happened. So this is good. And I like that they're starting small, and I like that they're kind of building this up. And, every team they don't have their names and their uniforms, just the city names and all that. Give it some time. They'll jazz it up, and it'll start to build up its character. But let these ladies play. Let them showcase what they can do. Let them start to build some crowds and fans. And then I'm sure in time we could easily see a PWHL expansion into Edmonton and Western Canada, Western United States for sure. I think just has to breathe, but give it a little bit of runway and it could take off. And I don't see why this wouldn't be a destination for it.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Well, go ahead, Evan.
No, I was going to say, so I had someone send in to me a couple questions. I don't know if we got some questions that have been coming in. I can't see from my end, Pawel, but
there's a few, but we don't want to take up too much of your time because I know, Tom, you get bombarded with questions. I've been on your show a few times after Oilers wins, and I see the comment thread just continue to add and add and add. And I know you're chatting with everyone, trying to analyze the game. So we'll get to it. Just a few. Go ahead, Evan.
Okay. Yeah. So I was going to ask the question, and this was someone who actually is playing. I'm not going to use their name. They asked me not to use it. There's nothing special. I'm not going to call you out or anything or do anything weird. But someone who is a former NHLer had sent a question in just around it. And so this is Oiler specific around it. Now, we've heard some conversations around some of the players talking about kind of how they got out of this slump into this winning streak. We talk about what they have done now that they weren't doing earlier, and everyone's trying to pinpoint it. And I know you guys have discussed this on your show, probably ad nauseum with it, but maybe just if you could surmise kind of what you guys are seeing yourselves, what you think has changed that the Oilers are actually now looking like a contender once again.
Yeah. First of all, a relief to see it because what a disaster that first 6 weeks was. 2-9-1 on November 9th, and they lose to San Jose 3-2, and they look like an absolutely dog crap team. Yikes. And it shouldn't have been that way. I'll say that this should be a contending team, and it's nice to see them doing what they're doing. The sense around the team at the time was overconfidence within the room. That's my sense, knowing them, talking to them. And then, you hear some of the things they got their coach fired. And even in the weeks after that, they didn't really want to talk about Jay Woodcroft and not in a bad way. I think there was some shame in that, I'll use it like shame. and people have pointed to the good things that Chris Knobloch has done. I think Mark Stewart has not been appreciated as much as he should be. Him and Paul Coffey have done a great job with the defense.
Absolutely.
And then, maybe just a different mindset and a different approach has kind of unlocked the Oilers that we expected. I don't know if, I've been told Jay had information overload, and Woody is a very detailed guy, and he's an excellent coach. And I don't know if that message or what he was trying to get to the guys' heads collectively just wasn't computing anymore, or if there was over detailed, but something wasn't connecting, and it cost them their coach. And Dave Matz, another really great guy, cost him his job as well. So that's too bad. I just think that they finally realized how bad they were playing. The overconfidence, probably, that they realized it too. And then you get a new voice in there because, something had to change and something had to give. So I think it was a combination of all of that, and they got their heads out of their asses, for a lack of a better term. And you know what? They're making Chris Knobloch look good. And to his credit, like, he's done some things that you go, geez, that was pretty smart. Like last night, putting Evan McLeod on the line with Draisaitl and McDavid late in the game. They scored a game-winning goal. Like,
wow.
There are some things that he's done. You can see it's like, oh, okay, that's working. Like being a little bit more patient with certain combinations up front, giving guys a little bit more rope, not having a penchant as much, although he has used those two together in McDavid and Draisaitl, but not as much. And I think that has all kind of lined things back up to the way they're supposed to be. So it's unfortunate the way things started. Just to me, they kind of got a little bit of humble pie, and you know what? They got the right message in the room, and it's starting to work.
I actually think the Edmonton Oilers group should actually send the New York Rangers Chris Drury a thank you letter for not hiring him in the interview process when they chose not to go with Chris. Not everyone is as familiar that he actually did get this interview, but we all know it was just lip service. They were never hiring a rookie. So good on the Oilers, even with veterans, that they went for it. So thanks, Tom.
No
One
problem.
of our commenters is saying, "Who is Evan McLeod?" I think.
Did I say Evan McLeod? I combined Evan Bouchard and Ryan McLeod. That's who that is.
I thought you were adding me in there, but okay.
I see that. I was a total brain fart. Ryan McLeod. Apologies.
It's all good. All good. So we'll get to a little bit what the Oilers can do, when Kit Holland can do potentially coming up by the trade deadline. But Jordan wanted to ask, and I told Jordan to watch the show earlier, who your favorite player was growing up. And I told him the answer to the second question, but you're more than welcome to repeat if you've always been a fan of the Oilers, which he clearly wasn't tuning in at the beginning. So I'm going to
all good.
Favorite player?
Yeah, I really liked Mark Messier, and then I became a huge Doug Weight fan. I've gotten to know Doug Weight, actually, in a really, just through the team, obviously, and him being around, and friends of friends, and awesome guy. They say never meet your heroes, but that guy's the exception. And then Mark Messier is just pure class. And so those two were always my favorite players, and I'll always stand by that. And then if I was a fan of the team growing up, the answer was yes, absolutely. Grew up loving the team. And then it was Gene Principe my first year in college when I was at NAIT. I was still a student. And I ended up getting a job as his studio runner on Oilers broadcast for the 07-08 season. And one of the first things he said to me, he's like, "Tom, you're a Northside Italian kid, just like I was. You grew up watching and loving the team and cheering for them. But now if you want in on this business, you need to just be a professional. And that means dropping the fandom." And it was harsh. And I kind of had to think about what he said a little bit. It took like a night or two to being like, wow, like I can't cheer for this team. All I know is this team, you know? And then the more I watched him and how he handled it, others, how they handled it in the media in Edmonton, and realizing, no, this is work. You have to separate being a fan from work. I really started to go down that path. And you know, I hope that I said it at the start of the show, like, I hope they do well. When they win, people in the city are happy. Friends and family are happy. That makes me relieved and happy. So I'm glad when they win, just selfishly. But if they lose 82 games, I still have a job to do. It's going to suck, but I have to do it. And that's what I signed up for. Now, thankfully, they don't lose 82 games. There was a while they were losing upwards of 60 with the OT losses, and that was harsh. Being on the plane, being at the same hotels and everything with them, that was crappy, but we got through it. But I don't cheer for any team. I have hockey. I can't even watch the same way anymore. We talk about it all the time. It's like, I just can't go to a game and be like, I'm going to watch the game because what happened there? Where was the breakdown? All right. We're going to talk about that after. And I'm like, what am I doing watching San Jose, Nashville? And I'm looking, I'm like, where was the F3 on that one? Not good. He's going to get his ears, reamed out. So yeah, it's just, no, I'm not a fan of any team anymore. I'm a big fan of the Edmonton Red Wings Junior B hockey team.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
Well, we have one more question because we don't want to take up too much of your time. I know you're a busy guy and you want to have your Wednesday night off. So we'll each finish off with one question unless you have anything else you want to share. So Evan, do you have a question or no?
Oh yeah.
No,
I'll
go first. Okay.
No. I do.
Go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to ask you ahead of time. Now, it's not like your normal years when you're talking about draft and talking about the Oilers in the draft. So it's much more exciting to actually catch some stuff. Outside of Celebrini, who do you see as the second overall?
I haven't even looked at the draft.
Okay.
We used to, Evan, seriously, we had to be ready for the draft by like November.
I know.
And I used to have like all my forecasters like, all right, which guy? We're going to top 5. Oh boy. Okay. And in the last 5 or 6 years, I don't even bother. I don't have to cover a draft. And I just wait until like the last month before the draft. And I go, all right, what's going on at the combine? You call a couple people, you ask a few questions like this guy, and this guy are on the radar. And then after the first round, who cares? Because the draft coverage died off. So I have no clue.
Okay, so I'm going to throw it in your ears. You can talk about it now and just tell someone, even though you may know nothing. Go with Yzerman, the next great Yzerman. She'll be solely alone at number 2. I'm just going to throw that out for you. I wanted to see your pick. So thanks, man.
Yeah, no problem. I want to like BS you guys and tell you I know about every player coming up. And did I watch every game of the World Juniors? Yes, that would be a total lie. I'll just be honest with you. I was stuck watching the Oilers, and I'm usually like up to here with the Oilers. So I just know I'm good. And I was watching Dusty do the Spangler Cup. That was my fill of hockey over
He did a great job.
The holiday season. So I caught some of the World Juniors, and I watched Celebrity. I'm like, okay, what's going on with him? Okay, that's great. But the draft has, and thankfully so, I'm not going to lie to you guys, it's a relief. It's kind of out of sight, out of mind until like a month before, and then you just ask about a few guys that might be on the radar, and so be it.
It's good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, we're getting quite a few questions in. I know you're a busy man. So we'll finish off 2 parts and then we'll close up. The one question that I had was, what's a storyline beyond the Edmonton Oilers that you have really like captivated you, or maybe what you think is very unique, whether good or bad, in the NHL this season thus far? Now, it could be a team, could be organizational, could be a player, could be a coach, whatever you think it is. That's something that you're keeping your eye on, and maybe it's finished, or maybe there's something else to it. For example, the Corey Perry situation, or the Vancouver Canucks. So your thoughts on that? And we have one more from Jordan on the show, but go ahead.
Sure. And yeah, I'll just hit on the Corey Perry thing right away. Like I saw someone mention, are the Oilers interested in Perry, or what's the likelihood? Yeah, they're interested in him. He's on their list. I've been told that. It sounds like that Perry has kind of opened his mind up to looking at other options outside of Eastern teams, and specifically American teams, like was initially thought and reported earlier. So yeah, the Oilers are a team that would approach Corey Perry and talk to him. I don't know what the percentage is that he lands here. The other guy is Sean Monahan. I know he's the guy that the Oilers are looking at as well. Put him on the list. I've had that confirmed. So I'll hit on that. The Perry one's interesting for a lot of bad reasons. And I know the juicy stuff is usually the stuff that is raunchier, like it was. So like that's not good, but it gets the clicks and it gets people going and the views and all that. But a lot, like 90% of the time, it's BS. Now I'm not even going to dip into that, but the one I've been watching is the Canucks. How good the Canucks have been playing, and the sustainability of it all, and how Rick Tocchet has those guys believing in themselves. That's been interesting in its own right. And then the other one, just like in terms of an individual perspective, is the slowdown of Alex Ovechkin and how he's kind of grinded to a bit of a halt here. And we're looking at him going at, what does he have? Like 16, 17 goals, and he went 14 without a goal. And People are saying, is that Gretzky record really in jeopardy now? And I'm like, oh my goodness. Like I thought for sure he was going to get it.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, the old guy, he's my age. And I'm going, boy, maybe Father Time is catching up to all of us. And I have no problem with him winning or not winning, beating that record. And I know, Gretzky's kind of given it his blessing too. But if it doesn't happen, I think a lot of hockey fans and specifically Canadian hockey fans too would probably be okay with that.
I think with that specifically, I think the loss of Backstrom there on that center ice position to feed him, I think that's been a big challenge for him. Whether he returns or not, I mean, I know he's been in and out of injuries. So until they get a good, better center, and I know they've struggled there, they brought in Dylan Strome, I think, for a bit there, and that's kind of helped. But, he's not, Backstrom, and they have good chemistry. So it'll be interesting to do. So
I have one bonus one too.
Go ahead. No.
The disaster that is Columbus.
Oh,
that has been like a tire fire that you always like look over at and you're like, oh, it's still burning, huh? Oh, it's getting even bigger. It's just like I good on Jarmo Kekalainen for keeping his job for so long. I think there's only one other GM that has a longer tenure. I think it's Doug Armstrong.
Wow.
But I don't know, like this guy, the moves he's.
Oh, it's freezing up again.
We might. Well, like he said, the firestorm and what's happening.
It is a firestorm, yeah. And now there's rumors of trading. What's his name?
Elvis.
Merzlakin has requested to be traded out. Right,
Yeah.
He officially has come out and said it. So I'm sure we'll get Tom back just in a second. We've had a very good, lively discussion with him so far.
Yeah.
I know everyone's been eager about coming in. Remember, Tom Gazzolo, you can find him on the what's it called?
Oil Stream.
Oil Stream. There he is. Clearly, our feed is not good enough for you, Tom. I'm so sorry.
Oh, it might be mine too. I'm downtown. I get like the baby monitors that knock out our Wi-Fi.
I'm downtown too. Don't worry. I seem to be okay, but clearly it's not. Columbus, it definitely has been quite unexpected, especially since it all started in the offseason with the Babcock situation, which was just weird to say the least. I think that's kind of how I would describe that whole situation, but it definitely didn't bode well for anyone. So we'll finish off. Oh, you're freezing up again. Stupid towers. We'll finish up. Clearly your internet said no, we're done. So come back.
That's okay.
We'll finish off. But you guys, Tom does great reporting. You can find him every night after every Oilers game, pre and post, on the Oil Stream on YouTube at Yeg Sports Talk, or the co-host of the Hello Hockey Show with Belzy. We got him there. There, you're back. Seriously, your Wi-Fi just says no.
Tom, just say your goodbyes, man, before you freeze again.
Because we didn't want to keep you. So, any final thoughts you want to share with people? If you want them to follow you or anything like that, or
sure, yeah. First, I'll start with a thank you to you, Pawel, for inviting me. I know this was kind of a long time coming, and the schedule didn't line up, and things got crazy. Evan, thank you. Good chatting with you again,
Thanks,
and thank you to everyone who watched. And just check us out, Edmonton Sports Talk. It's a digital station. It's something that we're catching up to the United States in terms of how media is digested and processed and absorbed now, and information. And we feel like we were given a head start because TSN or Bell Media cut the cord on TSN 1260. So just check us out, EdmontonSportsTalk.com.
Absolutely.
You can hear us on TuneIn. You can soon hear us on iTunes or iHeartRadio. We're going to announce that right away. And
excellent.
Just on YouTube as well. So we're basically everywhere except for the old AM dial, which, even when we were at 1260, we're like, we don't know how long this thing's going to last. So it's been good. We want to get as many people on board as possible. We have the same great shows and even some new stuff that we've brought on. And it's always great to just talk hockey with anybody on a Wednesday night.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much. All the best. And we wish you all the best in the rest of the season. Hopefully you have a very busy summer, if you know what I mean.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
All right, man. Keep it kid. Stick on the ice, man.
Take care.
Cheers. Yeah. So that's so awesome, guys. That's brought to you by Penny Billionaires. They are an electronic hard fuse rock band out of Phoenix, Arizona. They're our intro and our ending music. We have exclusive rights to their song. We want to thank them for that. Give them a check out on all things and all platforms you're looking for your music. Again, Penny Billionaires. Man, that was a great interview. I love his stories. Tom,
Yes.
you are fabulous at your stories. I mean, we could sit and pick his brain at stories all day long.
We already went beyond time. I said 25 to 30 minutes, and he seemed pretty willing, so it's good. I just didn't want to push him. I think the Wi-Fi was more so trying to keep us to our schedule.
I'm actually looking at all my stuff I got, and I'm knowing that you got a ton of stuff, and I'm like, okay, we better get to it and make sure that you don't put me too late in the show that I don't have a chance to get my Revs top 15. But anyway, guys, let's quickly hit on look at some of the players that are sitting out there, because you started with Columbus. Let's just hit in on that. Elvis is going to have to. No one's going to take his contract right now. They're going to have to play him, and he's going to have to play well enough and get a good enough save percentage, like say Peter Mrazek, that he's going to be in demand, because nobody's going to pick up 3 more years of that contract unless he can play like a number 1 or a number 1B.
Or they're getting a big haul, or Columbus retains.
No, who's getting a big haul? No one's. They're not going to. So they've kind of come out, unless Yarmo's out, they're not going to absorb any salary, is what it sounds.
Okay.
And the teams aren't going to pay a lot of money when they got to pay out such a contract.
Well, I agree. I'm saying, but if there was a price, I'm sure they're looking for maybe even a first rounder potentially for a starting goalie. I mean,
but he's not a starting goalie though. He
technically is, right? He's just been promoted right now in Columbus. He has historically played well. He's just struggled this season.
So do you think
demoted to the third pairing essentially, right? But I mean, goalies, you talked about whether they're voodoo or not, you know.
No. Elvis has never been a number 1 because a goalie plays doesn't make him a number 1 goalie. He gets
what makes him a number 1 goalie?
A number 1 goalie is a goalie that can actually carry a team. He cannot carry a team. Peter Mrazek right now is a number 1 goalie. He can carry a team. Right now, while he's not a number 1, I'm telling you right now, and even with the bad goal last night for Toronto, Martin Jones is a better goalie than Elvis, and he is not a number 1 goalie. So just because you get the playing time, and there's a reason that he's now number 3 in the system.
Martin Jones is a steal for what he got.
He was.
Like what he's been able to do. And he even had a good resurgence in Seattle when he was playing last year. So it was pretty impressive.
Good for him.
I agree with you that there will be very few takers for that contract unless potentially Columbus retains. But the problem, I think, with Columbus, and it's more of a ingrained problem, is whether or not Jarmo Kekalainen sticks around as the GM. Because I have a feeling it may not be during the season. They'll finish off the season, and they're going to reevaluate everything again, top to bottom, like they did last year.
Yeah.
But they're going to point hard at some of the contracts he brought in. And he was trying to bring in and bolster that blue line. You know, Ivan Provorov from Philadelphia, you know, he was brought in.
Good job.
These things, you know. They paid Goudreau that big money, and he has struggled this year. You know, Line, he's been benched this year. Like, that team has really struggled. We love, if anyone is out here tonight that is in Columbus and would love to chat Columbus, we'd love to get you on. Jordan is saying Elvis is on the same wine scale as Cutter Gauthier. That was a whole thing. Coaching. Oh, it's all about coaching. You don't think Pascal Vincent is a good coach?
No, it's nothing to do about being a good coach. Is he an NHL head coach? And I don't believe he is ready yet. I don't think that he is actually ready. And it's unfair to him to put him in that position, because now it's just like when Dallas Eakins came in. It made it really hard to become a head coach. And when you're not playing for the right team, he was put in a bad spot. So look at a new coach and look at a new GM for next year.
And then Jordan says, won't find any Jackets fans. They don't have any. Ouch.
Yeah. Okay. I will put a challenge out. I got some connections to the Columbus Blue Jackets. We'll get some super fans.
I think Columbus has some big questions. Now, the other team I wanted to talk about quickly before we get to the next topic for you, Evan, is the Toronto Maple Leafs. What is going on in Leaf Nation? Now, next week we have some special guests coming on to talk Leafs hockey. So, Hansi, if you're out there, Desmond, we're going to make sure you tune in, because you're going to want to listen in to some really juicy details and information. But what do you do with the team that has struggled, has broken down after being in the lead versus Colorado versus Detroit after that flight was delayed from Detroit to Toronto to that game.
Yeah.
And they lose to Edmonton, of course, even after being up and coming out strong. What do you do?
Yeah. I think that this comes – it's been talked about since the beginning of the year. What did the Oilers do when they started off and they were a contender? The Maple Leafs are a contender, whether you like them or not. Their defensive structure has worked. Yeah. Okay, don't be a we fandom here now. But honestly, they are in a great position. Don't get worried about it, but they need to make a move like Edmonton, and they might need to make that coaching move sooner than later, even though Treliving got behind this and stuff. They don't have a choice. They need to make a move. If they don't make a move, they're going to be in for a first round loss again. And if that happens,
or Boston.
Oh my goodness. I mean, they're going to be in tough, but they have the talent up front. They got to work out a few things in their goaltending and their defense, but Edmonton did too at the beginning of the season. You got to find a way to stabilize. And maybe this is not on Keefe, right? Maybe it's actually, but was it really on Woodcroft? Was it just maybe Chris coming in at the right time? Did maybe they need more of a fundamentals, a lot more consistency?
Heard Tom say that it was information overload. So that could be something that Keefe is doing. He, I believe, is the longest tenured coach in Canada. Right. And I know you guys in America, John Cooper there, Mike Sullivan in Pittsburgh, but in Canada, all the coaches have been changed in the last little bit. And he's the longest tenured coach for all the Canadian teams. I think it's the easiest move to make, although they did just sign him to an extension starting next season. So for 2 years. So
I know.
I think this is a Brendan Shanahan decision. And I think we'll have to follow up next week with our guests to get a little bit more of an insight as to what they're going to say. Go ahead.
So when you guys watch the beginning of the show, you'll hear a clip that talks about being a bully. I know some of you guys are thinking I'm probably talking about Mike Babcock, but I'm talking.
You're going to say me.
I'm talking about Brendan Shanahan, or as he was known for a while, Shanaban, when he was with the disciplinary board and doing the reviews and stuff back in the day. Anyway, I think this is a Shanahan thing. I truly do. I wonder how long he's going to last. I like the guy. And we've had some guests on that absolutely stand behind him, including Adam Proto of the Hockey News, one of our former guests, with it. Hey, can I just mention again, about the PWHL, as you were talking earlier, just so you guys know, I had 3 people lined up. One was already scheduled to be lined up with us. None of them, because they all made their current teams, including Carly Jackson, who was scheduled with us, of the Toronto, the Toronto PWHL team. Carly Jackson's the backup goalie. So she was actually scheduled on our show. And Cassidy Sauvé, who is one of the, she actually has played with Carly. So I think she might have put a good word in for us originally. But Cassidy's been hurt again. And it's really sad. Someone who is an incredible goalie. I don't know what her future holds. I really like to hear more where she's thinking right now for herself, and also because this is something that she was dreaming about at one point in time too.
Very, very nice. Well, we're going to get to some of the other news in the last little bit because we're running out of time, but I know that you wanted to continue to talk about the prospect pool and some of the REVS top 15. I believe you have number 13 on tonight. Is that correct?
That's it. Number 13.
So, let's line it up. All right, guys, our REVS Top 15 is brought to you by Sports Empire for all your sporting needs, whether it's the NFL play-in and playoffs happening soon, a lot of storylines there, or it's baseball or the NBA. Lots is happening. Go check them out. Go give them a follow at YouTube, at Twitter, or now known as X, and anywhere else you like to get your Spotify or your podcast, Spotify or Apple. Evan, what do you got for us today?
Well, we got number 13 on my REVS top 15. Number 13 is another defenseman. And so as the Lost Trucker once mentioned that, wow, there's a lot of defensemen in the top 15. There is another defenseman. This defenseman is Carter Yakmanchuk, who is a right-hand defenseman, but standing at 6'3", weighs about 190. So an average weight right now probably will come in around 194 to 196 by the time they're ready for camp. Maybe they could hit 200, depending on their growth spurt. So Carter really took off the last half of last season. And I don't know, you got a whole bunch of fans in the background cheering. I hear beep, beep, beep. I don't know if they're coming through. That's okay. It's all the tweets coming your way, bud. So one of the things about him is he's rangy. So if you ever saw those big, tall defensemen that are rangy, that's what Carter's a lot like, but really good on the pass and really does play that two-way game. Another player, and a lot of players that came out of the Brick Invitational, talking about with Tom just out of the Edmonton region, the Brick Invitational Tournament, wonderful place to check out these kids when they're really young. I'd be really interested to hear how tall Carter was when he was 9 years old playing in the Brick. I bet you he didn't hit his sprout until he was probably 12 or 13 years old. I don't have that kind of information for you guys, but has carved out a good career last year, had 47 points in 67. This year, more than a point per game playing for the Calgary Hitmen. So just down south of Edmonton area where Tom is from, you have the Calgary Hitmen with Carter Yakmanchuk, and I'm looking at him as being a number 13. That's my Revs top 15.
Well, Jordan is saying, Evan, he plays in the WHL. Doesn't he play for the Hitmen? Or
that's what I just said. Jordan, where are you? Are you?
We're gonna have to get Jordan back on the show. He's been fired up all week with me.
He has.
I love the passion. I love the passion. Yeah. He's throwing his body around. He's the Zach Cassian to what we need.
We actually got to get him set up. So right at the, I think we're going to try and book you on the show there for early March there, buddy. So we can talk about all these WHL players. He's fascinated with the WHL. I don't know. Maybe it's the Wonder Boys that he's fascinated with. I don't know.
Well, you guys can find all of Evan's Revan's top 15 list on our website at Two Guys and Hockey Talks, just like we are here every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. All right, Evan. So we're down to the wire, as they say. What do you want to finish with? Because I have two things that I kind of want to talk about. One acknowledgement and then one other thing. But so I'll get to it first then. Congrats to Tyler Ennis on retiring from pro hockey. I know he was playing in Europe in the last little bit, but he was an What?
I'm just looking at the screen behind me. I'm just like, okay, I'm a colorful. I guess I'm the Wonder Boy here. Okay, sorry, I interrupted Tyler Ennis's retirement.
So Tyler Ennis has retired from the game of hockey. He was a fun depth guy. Played for Edmonton for a little bit. Played for Buffalo. Played for a few other teams. Good, solid career. Great ball hockey player. Overall, great guy. Wish him all the best in the future. Jordan's saying he doesn't play US DP, whatever that is, but Evan seems to be in love with his US DP. So there you go, Evan.
I said he plays in the Brick Invitational. I said nothing about the US. So you got to go back on the show there, Jordan. Oh my goodness.
And then Jordan talks about Ennis playing against him when he was a kid. Fantastic player, great guy. Yeah, he really was. He was a dynamic guy. So
that's really cool.
It's pretty amazing because, I've seen him play ball hockey. He's a pretty solid dude. So that's pretty much it. One more thing on my end, but I'll let you take it away if there's anything you want to cover.
I just want to make mention, since we have been focusing a little bit around Edmonton here tonight with Tom Gazzola on special guest again. Special thanks to our guest headliner, Tom Gazzola. It was a privilege, Tom, if you are still picking up the end of our show. If not, you got better things to do to get ready for your next show. You guys can check them out, as we mentioned, on the Oil Stream, also on the weekends if you want some more information with Belsey. That's Sean Bell, former NHL player who he works with, and as they were talking even about the BCHL stuff earlier. I just want to mention around the Oilers, there's been a lot of talk that was mentioned. So Tom just confirmed that I've had people asking me around the Monahan, and I said, yes, they have been doing their inquiries. Frankly, I think Monahan is the difference. Literally, they don't have to touch a thing. They could just go with Monahan, and literally that would boost them up probably about a 10% chance to actually be a cup contender to make it all the way if you can add him to your third line depth and he can stay healthy. No idea what they're going to give up to do that. And now Corey Perry, I don't think they'll be able to get it done in the end. That's just frankly not to do with discussion. That's just my opinion. I do see him maybe going to Toronto. So we can talk next week about that with the Westlock boys. And then the other piece I just wanted to mention is there is some rumor around and out there, even Pierre LeBrun has talked about maybe the Oilers are looking in at a tutor for someone to actually and a mentor for this the playoff run at the trade deadline if Minnesota falls out with Marc-Andre Fleury. We've heard this many times. I'm sorry. He has said no in the past to coming this way. I do believe that he is potentially on the trade block, that he could, because Guerin did not close it down. He could have just closed it down. He didn't close it down. That tells me, but I just don't see that happening. Hello, could there be a Toronto in the mix?
Interesting. And Jordan,
one final run in Pittsburgh.
Okay. Jordan's not looking at a guy like Nick Dowd out of Washington, who's also right-handed.
Yeah.
The thing with Washington is they're so kind of in the mix for the playoffs that it's hard to say. Now, I don't believe that they can go to the final unless, barring some wild thing that happens, they may win a round, I could say, but really that team is kind of in the restructuring, just, tinkering here and there.
I don't think they're going to make it. I think they're going to drop out of the playoffs in the last run.
I mean, Pittsburgh has been surging in the last little bit. It's a fun mix because honestly, Evan, this year
it'll be fun.
It's the first year that there's a lot of uncertainty about who can and cannot make it. Apart from maybe 3 or 4 teams that are, you're dead set knowing that they'll make it and could go far. I'm looking at the Vegases, the Boston, the Florida Panthers, even Winnipeg could surprise us, right? They'll definitely have to see how it goes. The one thing I want to talk about is Vegas, because it seems like Jack Eichel is now injured again. He took that weird hit versus Boston when they were playing. They won that game, came out, scored the goal. But now he potentially could be injured long-term. And we all know long-term injury and Vegas and how that looks. I don't want to circumvent anything, but but no, there's definitely questions. So I think what we have to look at is how are injuries treated in the future, because the game is so fast and quick that like one thing that you think, this can get you injured or this can get you down, and then you're out for a while.
Yeah.
And a big part of that what's it called? Part of that core. But I don't know what Vegas is going to do if they're for a very long time, at least into the playoffs, because that could be a big thing. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit quickly. Finally,
oh wow, yeah, this is like the 5th thing that you have to talk. Okay,
I'm allowed to talk about it. I'm in control. Finally, okay, let's finish on this. What has happened to the LA Kings and their fall from grace? We'll finish on this. Why have they lost so many in a row? And what do you do to fix it? And how do you get Pierre-Luc Dubois going?
Yeah. Well, I didn't think we were still going to continue on. I didn't want to take up too much time, so I'm going to answer it really quickly. In my opinion, Pierre-Luc Dubois was not all that they thought he was at putting him in a top 2 center. Put him as a top 3 on a cup team. Yeah. As a number 2, he's going to struggle. I think that Cam Talbot is a good goalie, but they were playing above their head for a period of time. The season is now heating up. The serious hockey is now started to play. It started probably about right after Christmas. You usually see the teams really whipping into shape. People are learning the systems is what I think is happening. I think that they're learning what they have going in Vegas, in Los Angeles, and they're figuring it out. So I see them as a wild card. I do not see them in the top 3, and Edmonton will displace them.
Wow. Big prediction. Well, thank you once again. That's a big, bold prediction. We appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Tom, for coming on as a guest. We appreciate it, for your insight and enthusiasm. That was some pretty engaging conversation. We are back next week with another special guests, which we'll get more details out as soon as we finalize everything. But we'll be here at 7 p.m. Remember, every Wednesday, 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or X, Evan at REVNEV, or myself at hockey_2. You can follow our YouTube page. Evan's just pointing at things. We appreciate it. Guys, it's been a ring-a-ding-dandy, stig-a-ding-dandy, whatever Evan said. Evan, any final thoughts before we finish?
Final thoughts, man, is I love all you guys. It's great having you on. Thanks for the interaction. And look forward to a bunch of the future conversations, because hockey around the world is crazy right now. We got some great Russian stuff I'd like to talk about next week too, after we're done with our guests next week. So looking forward to it. Guys, as we say every week, in the meantime and in between time,
keep your sticks on the ice. Stay safe.
Stay safe, guys. Cheers.
Could that just put him over the edge?
I'm not too sure. I don't think they did well.
He's a bully.
I'm just so sick and tired. I'm hanging on a wire, a foot over the fire, and it's burning. I can feel it inside. Done with the same cliche. Done with the day after day. There's got to be a way. Now is the time to break the tide. I'll live, I'll die for what is wrong and what is right. I'll take the pain for all the ones without a name. To be invincible, we'll be invincible.
They still have a lot of holes to fill.